It starts with a whisper so dangerous it's shaking the walls of Buckingham Palace. Prince Andrew is finally talking. Not to the press, not to the public, but in private rooms behind closed doors where secrets don't echo, they detonate. And thousands of miles away in California, Meghan Markle reportedly isn't sleeping, because this isn't casual chatter. This isn't bitterness. This is a man with nothing left to lose, and that makes him lethal. Prince Andrew didn't just fall from grace, he was erased, stripped of titles, silenced, turned into the family embarrassment no one was allowed to mention at dinner. His association with Jeffrey Epstein wasn't handled quietly or gently. It was brutal, immediate, public. One accusation from Virginia Giuffre and the royal machine snapped shut on him like a steel trap. Doors closed, support vanished, protection evaporated. Andrew became radioactive. But here's where the story turns dark and deeply uncomfortable, because insiders are now whispering the question no one once answered. If Andrew was destroyed for Epstein, why wasn't Meghan even questioned? Same era, same elite social circles, same yachts, same billionaires. Yet one royal was sacrificed and one woman was wrapped in silence. That silence is what Andrew is furious about. Word from inside his inner circle is chilling. Andrew is tired of being the only body buried under the wreckage. He knows names, he knows dates, and most importantly, he knows who else was there. And now he's allegedly telling friends he's done protecting someone who turned her back on the monarchy the moment it stopped serving her. That's where Meghan's panic begins. Because Andrew isn't just hinting at social overlap, he's allegedly suggesting something far more explosive. A relationship, a connection that would rewrite the entire narrative of how Meghan entered royal orbit. Not as a naive outsider, not as a random love story, but as someone already embedded in elite networks long before Harry ever saw her face. And once the Epstein name enters the room, everything changes. We already know Andrew's ties to that dark world, but the whispers now are asking, what about hers? The mainstream media doesn't touch this, but the details refuse to stay buried. Karina Shuliak, Epstein's last known girlfriend, moved exclusively through private jets and yachts inside that network. And photographs from 2014 show Meghan Markle on a yacht in the same orbit. Coincidence? Sources say no. And then comes the most explosive detail of all. Virginia Giuffre's legal team once considered calling Meghan Markle as a witness. Let that sink in. Why would the woman at the center of the Andrew case even know Meghan well enough to consider that? Because according to whispered accounts, Meghan wasn't a stranger to those circles. She was familiar, known, present. That's when palace silence stops looking like protection and starts looking like fear. Because if Meghan's name ever becomes officially linked to Epstein-era files, the fallout wouldn't be personal, it would be institutional. Which brings us to the man at the center of everything, the ghost no one likes to name, Marcus Anderson. The fixer, the gatekeeper, the architect behind the curtain. As the global consultant for Soho House, Anderson wasn't just hosting parties, he was curating access. And word from the street is that Meghan wasn't just a guest, she was selected. Back in 2011, when Soho House Toronto opened, insiders claim Anderson didn't merely give Meghan a membership, he recruited her, introduced her, positioned her, not to actors, to billionaires, to royalty. Through Anderson, Meghan suddenly appeared at the right dinners, the right yachts, the right after parties in London, New York, Istanbul. This wasn't luck, it was placement. And here's the detail that makes Andrew furious. He says Harry was never the original target. According to raw accounts from those close to the York family, Meghan's first real endgame was Andrew himself, the wealthy prince, the sprawling estate, the established access. But there was one obstacle she didn't anticipate: Sarah Ferguson. Fergie may be divorced from Andrew, but they are inseparable, roommates, allies, keepers of each other's secrets. And sources claim Fergie saw Meghan coming years before the world did. She allegedly blocked access, closed ranks, shut doors. And when that path collapsed, Meghan pivoted, not away from royalty, toward a weaker link, a younger prince, emotionally fragile, desperate for validation, hungry to be understood. Harry didn't know he was Plan B, but insiders say Fergie did. And now, as Andrew watches from the shadows, stripped of everything, the irony is brutal, because Harry is allegedly discovering the truth far too late. Sources from California whisper that information once dismissed as snobbery or racism has finally landed. Evidence, connections, names. The realization, the woman he gave up everything for may have been far closer to his disgraced uncle than he ever imagined. Imagine that moment. the country abandoned, the family attacked, the title surrendered, only to realize the past you defended is the very thing unraveling your marriage. And while the palace stays silent, the reason is terrifyingly simple. They're not protecting her, they're protecting themselves. Because admitting the truth wouldn't just expose Meghan, it would expose how someone with those connections walked straight into the front row of the royal balcony. And now, with Andrew cornered, furious and unprotected, the balance of power is shifting. A man with nothing left to lose is watching the clock, and Meghan knows it. By the time the sun rises over Montecito, the truth Meghan fears most is already circling her like a storm cloud that refuses to pass. Because Andrew isn't bluffing anymore. This isn't gossip drifting through palace corridors. This is preparation. Sources say Andrew has started organizing his memories the way men do when they're done being polite. Dates, locations, witnesses. Not to clear his name, not to redeem himself, but to make sure he isn't the only one remembered as the villain. And that terrifies the palace. Because for the first time, Andrew holds something they can't control. Timing. The palace has survived scandals before. Affairs, divorces, even deaths. What it cannot survive is proof that its gatekeeping failed so catastrophically that someone with Epstein-era proximity walked straight into royal life, then weaponized victimhood to shield herself from scrutiny. That's why the silence is so loud. Behind the scenes, sources whisper that advisors have been scrambling, not to defend Meghan, but to contain Andrew. Because if he speaks publicly, he doesn't just burn her. He burns the system that allowed it. And this is where King Charles enters the picture. Quietly, cautiously, painfully aware that every move he makes could detonate decades of carefully rebuilt legitimacy. Charles isn't emotional about this. He's strategic. He understands something Harry never did, that scandal isn't about truth alone, it's about impact. And Andrew's truth, if unleashed, would splash back onto the throne itself. Then there's Catherine, and her reaction is the most revealing of all. Sources close to the Wills household say Catherine has gone completely still. No commentary, no leaks, no subtle counter-narratives, because she understands the danger of noise. Her silence isn't indifference, it's calculation. She knows the public mood is shifting. People aren't asking, is this cruel? Anymore. They're asking, why were we never told? And once that question takes hold, it never lets go. Meanwhile, in California, the emotional temperature has changed. The love story fade is cracking. Insiders claim Harry isn't shouting anymore. He's gone quiet, the kind of quiet that signals realization, the kind of quiet that comes when you replay old conversations and suddenly hear them differently. The warnings, the hesitations, the people he cut off. And now the question that keeps him awake at night, what if they were trying to protect me, not hurt her? Harry's inner circle says the evidence presented to him recently wasn't gossip, it was documentation, connections, timelines that overlap too neatly to ignore. The man he was taught to despise, his uncle, may have been part of the same world his wife moved through with ease. And that realization is shattering. Because if Meghan knew Andrew before Harry, then the fairy tale wasn't fate. It was strategy. And the cruelest irony? Andrew knows Harry will never forgive her if the truth comes out. That's why Andrew's leverage is devastating. He doesn't need to convince the world. He only needs to confirm Harry's doubts. That's the nuclear button. The palace knows this. Fergie knows this. And Meghan knows this better than anyone. That's why her past is suddenly being scrubbed harder than ever. Old associates disappearing. Former friendships rewritten. Timelines blurred. But here's the rule of elite circles that Meghan allegedly broke. You never discard the people who know your secrets. And she discarded all of them. Her father, her friends, the Yorks, people who stayed silent until now. Andrew doesn't need the palace's permission anymore. He's already lost everything they could take. No titles, no future, no reputation left to protect. And a man with nothing left is unstoppable. The palace's greatest fear isn't Andrew speaking, it's Andrew being believed. Because the moment the public realizes two people from the same shadowy social orbit were treated wildly differently, the narrative collapses. Why was one destroyed instantly while the other was shielded, platformed, and monetized? That question alone could fracture trust beyond repair, which is why the palace is stalling, waiting for the perfect moment to let Andrew fade quietly before he talks. But time isn't on their side. Andrew is older now, bitter, unfiltered, and reportedly furious watching Meghan portray herself as a hunted victim while he rots in exile. Netflix interviews, podcast tears, carefully crafted trauma narratives. Andrew sees it all, and he's done being the monster so someone else can play the martyr. This isn't revenge, it's exposure. And when the first crack appears, one leaked conversation, one corroborating witness, the floodgates will open. The Soho House connections, the yacht photographs, the pre-royal social mapping. Things once dismissed as conspiracies suddenly look like patterns. And the palace knows once the public starts connecting dots, it's game over. So what happens next? Not a press conference, not a statement, a slow bleed, selective leaks, background briefings, distance. The royal machine doesn't explode scandals, it suffocates them. But Andrew isn't playing by those rules anymore. He's watching, waiting, counting down. And Meghan feels it, because for the first time since she entered royal life, she isn't controlling the story. Someone else is holding the pen. And that's the real panic. The fairy tale didn't just end, it reversed. The silence is thinning, the truth is pressing upward. And when Andrew finally speaks, the palace won't be reacting, they'll be surviving. Because this isn't about Meghan anymore. It's about how the monarchy allowed a carefully curated illusion to replace scrutiny and whether it can endure the moment that illusion collapses. The first domino is leaning, and this time, no one is rushing to catch it. No one is rushing to catch it. No one is rushing to catch it. No.